Good morning. We're back again. We're going to try and get to a point right off the rip. Let's do it. Feeling overwhelmed. Feeling like this is the source of my problems. The phone in particular, not you, but a parasocial relationship on the internet. The problem lies there. It lies in the way that we socialize, the way that we consume media, lights and flashing lights and sound. We have to have our phone with us at all times. It's become, basically a part of us. I need to separate myself. That might be what is going on. And ending up here is a sad state of affairs where I'm giving myself a therapy session. The only time that I'm carving out for myself is I'm justifying it by putting it out on the internet for no one to see. Basically, to give myself an out for doing this, which is insane. Talking, rambling, just kind of coming up with stuff to talk about when, normally I would be listening to a podcast or listening to a video or even watching a video while I'm driving, which is not recommended, all that stuff. But I would, there's periods in my life where I would drive around in silence. And the thing is, it wouldn't be silent in my head. There was always something going on. And I would, think about a lot of things, and I would get into bad loops. I would also be very creative. I would come up with a lot of different song ideas and melodies and lyrics. It could be anything. You get inspiration from different, if you're looking for it or if you're open to it, as I can be at times, and I know how to filter my perspective and my reality into art, some sort of artistic medium, which used to be, I started out as a visual artist and just doing, as a kid, basically, as a visual artist. But my parents and teachers and anybody who saw it knew that I was talented and gifted, and I was, given art supplies as a kid and given a bunch of stuff to help and to nurture that talent. And it got annoying. By the time I was probably, I'd say, to 10 or something, like around that age, or maybe a little older, probably around 10, maybe earlier even, I just started to get annoyed with getting pastels and, reams of paper for birthday gifts or Christmas gifts and stuff like that. And I was just kind of, I would use them, and I would usually make one or two works of art, and they would be impressive, and it would be where I could leave it alone. I wouldn't pick it up again. It wasn't like I needed to master it. It was just like, okay, that's what that does. What's next? And I kind of went through a bunch of different things. I never really mastered painting. I never really mastered any of it. But drawing and, not as much into colors. blending colors and stuff. Like there's a whole art to that, and there's a whole craft to that. But just, simple drawings and shading and stuff like that I could understand, and I could do a pretty good job, and I could make decent compositions that people could understand, and resonated with people somehow. So there was a talent being nurtured, and then I got sick of it. And this is a cycle. So I'm coming to this another end of a cycle right now, where I'm trying to I switched to music when I got into punk rock music, and my friends were listening kind of just things that were more edgy, faster. That seemed like it was the thing when I was a kid. I was kind of into skateboarding a little bit, and there was that was kind of the direction I was headed. That spoke to me, the whole punk ethos of rebellion and stuff, which is kind of another cycle that has been, I think, perpetuated onto us. I don't necessarily know if it's a natural thing. If you have a loving mother and father, why do you need to rebel against them? Why can't you understand that the limitations that they set for you and all this? And it goes back to, I guess, the Garden of Eden, the original sin. If you're in the Christian mindset, that's where it would go back to. In the Hindu mindset, it's like the creator. This is another thought I had in the shower. I was just thinking about incest, and I believe that was like one of the shenanigans that I don't know if it was Brahma was up to, the creator god, and deemed unworthy because of the shenanigans or something like that. So I don't know. It gets very strange when you get into all this stuff. But where did I start with all this today? And what was my I didn't complete my shower thought there, but there seems to be some sort of weirdness that is these taboo things, and all this weird stuff is like baked into our reality in a weird way. And it's almost like it was a mistake. And the Gnostic idea of the demiurge being, the creator, and that God had to come in, the true God, through Jesus Christ and through, possibly, others, but Jesus would have been the last, the last really known one. So that's one idea. I just finished listening to Valis by Philip K. Dick, the audiobook. And I was realizing, it was, I have that craziness that Horse Lover Fats or Philip K. Dick, I have that questioning of my own sanity, but also realizing that that's out in the world, and that's part of this paradoxical thing that we're in. And I think the main theme, there was a couple different things, but time turning into space, um, time and space being just an illusion, all things kind of being at their final state, but also being existing in all states simultaneously. And then a little bit of the multi-dimensional idea where there's options, there is a free will element in there, but it wasn't necessarily played out, I don't think. And I don't know if the character of Horse Lover Fats is just if that's a different in what Philip K. Dick was trying to do with that character and separating himself from that character. I wonder, I'm sorry to anybody who hasn't read the book or listened to the book like I did, but you'll just have to bear with me if you're listening, and no one's listening, so don't worry. That basically he separated himself in the attempt to compartmentalize his craziness. And I think that going through a lot of the things that Philip K. Dick actually went through, like having the information beamed into his head about his son, that the information that saved his son's life, in reality, I think is a very troubling proposition to try and deal with, because you don't know why you were selected. You don't know. There's all these questions that come into it. So separating yourself into different ideas or time or persons or aspects of yourself, so you don't have to take ownership of them. And maybe that's what all this really is taking ownership of all these characteristics and all these opportunities and all these trials and tribulations and tests that we're going through all the time. And people say that that we choose this, and it's a contract that we have, and that the courts all kind of mimic or try to impersonate the real court of heaven, or the law is trying to replace what God already has in oh my gosh, I look ridiculous with an earbud in, but this lady has literally a headset on. She's probably a call center person working from home. She's doing her job. It's just a little unusual out in the country here. But she was getting her daughter on the bus. So, no complaints on my behalf. Shout out, Jacob. So, back to the story, which doesn't really it's not really fitting together as much as I'd like it to. But back to the digitization, the mechanical world, the overlay over what is already some sort of technology, some sort of high technology. But that high technology seems to actually be made for us and beneficial to us. And that's what I'm talking about, just like nature. Nature's one step closer. I do think they're like the the technology of our spirit and our soul, and that is, that's the true mechanism, and that's where I think we've been, we might have been trapped, and we might have, and in like the Vallis book, it talks about that we created this trap for ourselves, and then that, all of it's up to be questioned in Vallis, and it's, the thing is it's based on bits and pieces of reality and things that actually happened to the author, and he and those are main plot points of the story. And then, everything is based on something in reality. Like David Bowie being the Mother Goose character, and the man who fell to earth, and maybe some of the early movies about AI, like I think it was Colossus, I just saw something about that, because I did a little bit of just research, just trying to see what the story was based on, and what actual events happened. And I didn't go too deep into it, but I can see how he put that story together from the time, and how he was influenced, in his politics and stuff like that. And I don't think it's, anytime there's politics involved, that always pulls me out of a story a little bit, because I just see that as a big play, basically, where everyone is behind the scenes. They're all just doing the same stuff, but it might be important. The play might be important, but they're all on the same team. They all know the score, when they're off stage, when they're behind the scenes, or at least I believe that that they know more than they're letting on, and they're not fooled. They're not fooled into thinking that they're actually doing good for people, I don't think. I think maybe we could start off like that in politics, but I don't think that is a conclusion that anyone can reach who's been in politics for even probably more than a term, I would say. I'd say you learn pretty quick once you actually try to do anything. And if not, then you're just completely oblivious, which could be a lot of politicians. But just blind ambition. So, again, this is the problem, right? And I need to stop listening to my phone, and I'm getting a lot of my opinions from videos and from the algorithm and stuff like that. And like even Philip K. Dick and all that, like I'm not a bookworm, and I don't go after books. Like, the Bible is one of the only books that I've actually physically read, and I skipped over the whole book of Numbers because I got a chapter or two in, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, what am I going to gain by reading this? And maybe I missed something there, and maybe it is important, but that's not the point. The point is that I don't go after books, and I do find things on the internet that pique my interest, and the problem is I find too many things that pique my interest. The phone already, the algorithm knows what to feed me to give me that dopamine, and it's a perpetual thing where I'm not being refreshed. It is the idea of entropy, and that, it's like I am I'm getting sucked by the phone. And even now, putting my thoughts out onto the internet just sucks. As you can tell, listening to this video, and no offense to anybody who's listening, and I'm talking to myself. So I know what I need to do, and that's where the cognitive dissonance and the pain and the avoidance and the escapism, the distractions, it feeds itself. But I have a lot of stuff to do, and I got to get busy. And I don't want to be I don't want to be on here complaining all the time. But I also don't want to be on here just going through a laundry list of things I have to do, because that's not necessarily helpful to anybody, except as a reminder to myself, which really like, okay, that's valid. I could just be doing that, and then posting them on, telling you exactly what I need to do for the day, and then just posting it on the internet. Because no one's watching, I will watch it briefly as I'm uploading it for the next day, and it might be a reminder of things for me to do. So maybe that's not a bad idea, considering what the actual value of this video is. And it is a completely selfish endeavor as of right now. So, and I don't know how long I'm going to do these videos. Like I said, it's kind of, I wanted to have a practice in being consistent and you know, I wanted to have something, basically, to start, somewhere to start, which is doing the easiest thing I could possibly do, just talk on my way to work, and not even have a point, and then just not even edit the video and put it up. And it's easy, but I'm already like, what's really the point? And I haven't found the point yet. I've given myself a lot of justifications for putting up videos and for talking and rambling, but I have not found the point. And the point might just be what I've said all along, which is everything is going to be all right. And Bob Marley already said that, and I'm sure, you know, all the greats have already said it, and I do believe that. Because we're either all going back to source, where everything will be all right, and there will be nothing that isn't right, or we just keep on this cycle, and you know, we have little bits and pieces of it. Either way, it's not a bad deal. Everything is going to be all right.